Hello, everyone. I'm so glad that you made it to Coach Track 201. So you made the first one, and now you're in the second one. Congratulations. Give everyone around you a hand. You got to the second one. Go ahead. Go ahead and do it. Awesome. So today, what we're going to be talking about is inspire. And so one of the really important things as a coach is to know how to inspire people, because there's a difference between, getting a task done and helping inspire people. And there's different ways to inspire. You may not consider yourself a very inspirational person, but there may very well be inspirational giftings in you, and that's why we're doing this equipping, because we're all wired differently. But how do we inspire the people, specifically the leaders that God has gifted us to? So that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about inspiration. To be a coach, you have to be able to inspire. So what I want to do to start off here is, on a scale from 1 to 10, process it for a second. On a scale from 1 to 10, how inspired do you think your team is? On a scale from 1 to 10, if you can write it down, let's just be honest. On a scale from 1 to 10, how inspired do you believe your team to be? What I have found is that when a team can be inspired, they're more likely to be successful at what they're called to do. And so I know we're talking to people here in the building, and I know many of you guys are watching this via the video, so I'm going to be going back and forth between you and the people that are here. But this is a big thing, inspire, and that is have a heart to encourage, unite, and motivate their leaders. As a coach, we are to have a heart to encourage, unite, and motivate our leaders. And it's important because if the leader is going to do their job and directors are going to do their job, the coaches are vitally important. And to be honest, what we realized, this is one of the number one areas that we're missing as a church, is that we had our directors or our primary leaders playing three roles: leader, coach, and director. And even people who are naturally good at coaching, they're actually probably naturally wired for this kind of role, weren't actually able to excel at this role because they're playing all these other roles. And so once we identified that this coaching thing needed to happen, all of a sudden things started to make sense. So you playing this role is of vital importance for us to be able to care for our teams and advance what God has called us to do. Hebrews 10, 24 and 25, and let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some in the habit of doing, but encourage one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. So we are called to spur one another, to encourage one another, is part of what we're called to do. And so I'm going to talk a little bit, just briefly, in this beginning section of Inspire, because we're going to talk about the how-tos in just a moment, but we're going to talk a little bit about why this is important and what it looks like. And the number one characteristic, if you want to write this down, the number one characteristic for inspiration is this: authentic passion. Authentic passion is the number one inspirational quality of someone. Now, some people are more expressive of their passion than others, and that's fine. But as long as your passion is authentic, some people are more verbal with their passion, some people are more instructive in their passion. Passion can have a lot of different takes, but what's important here is authenticity, that it's authentic. Craig Groeschel said this about authentic passion: it's leading from a state of assuredness. It's good internal alignment, being guided by values, driven by purpose, and obsessed by mission. It's not chasing a competitor, it's living a calling. It's not trying to prove something, it's living from a heart of passion. So authentic passion really, really matters. So passion helps give us direction. Passion helps keep us going, even when we feel like giving up. Passion helps us to focus on what's the most important, helps us to be able to identify the core objectives. That's why, authentic passion is, I'm called to this, or I believe in what we're doing. Whatever it is, it's authentic passion is a precondition to use one's leadership strengths effectively. All right, so that's really important, that we believe in the local church, that we believe in what we're called to do, that the role that we're playing is important. Authentic passion really matters, and this goes back into our core values of basically loving God, loving others, pursue excellence, and choose joy, and a variety of others that we have. This is important, and this is why this leadership process, this leadership pipeline that we have, the lead track, the growth track, is so important, because one of the big things is not necessarily competency. It could be spiritual maturity, but another issue is that values. If someone doesn't have the same values of the church, it will go things in the wrong direction. And so authentic passion is the number one thing. So when it talks about authentic passion being a precondition to these others, meaning like if you have these other things and your passion's not authentic, then the other stuff's probably gonna undercut things. So there has to be an authentic passion about what we're doing. Not necessarily an authentic passion about the specific task or a specific season, because there are always going to be seasons that you're not going to like as much. There's always going to be tasks that some people like and some people don't. It's talking about the authentic passion that we believe in what we're called to do. And when that's there, these other inspirational qualities soar. If it's not there, then they fall flat. But in this study is shown, it says that there's actually 32 other attributes that are inspirational attributes to your team. And I'm not going to go through the entire list, but we're going to show you this list. And I want you to process which of these are your top 5. Just take the time. And I think we have, there's 32 of them. We have a couple slides that you'll go back and forth on. So look at this first list and go to the next one. And go back and forth between these so the teams can see them. But which of these 5 would you say are your top 5? Because here's the cool thing. Here's the importance of this. We can so easily compare ourselves to other leaders and go, well, I'm not that, and they're this, and I'm not, and I'm more of this than that. But all of these attributes can be inspirational. So find out what you are gifted and how you're gifted to do. So take a moment and just identify your top 5 in this. All right? So what I want you to do is now discuss and just go around with your group that you're with and identify some of your attributes in this. Don't take too long in this. Just take the next 5 minutes and everyone share at least one. And if you have time, do 2 to share which of these do you think are more of what you're gifted in. Again, the cool thing is that all of these things can be inspirational to other people. See, here's the cool thing is that even when you looked at, some of you guys had some overlap, but if you did the whole 5 list, probably most of your lists would be somewhat different, right? That's cool because that means that we can be not only, so this should be encouraging because it's humbling and encouraging at the same time. One is nobody has all the gifts, right? That's why we're the body of Christ. We all have different leadership gifts. So one, that humbles us because we can't do this alone. At the same time, it's encouraging because God has gifted us with certain things that he might not have gifted with other people. And even if people have the same exact top 5, it's still something that it's still going to look differently in another person. So one of the reasons why we wanted to do this is, one, for you to know how you're wired, but also to help you look and identify this potential in other people. All right? So could someone coach, do you see this potential in them? Do they have these types of things to look for? Now, there's obviously a lot of other things in regards to different competencies we're looking at, but as far as inspiration, it needs to be there. You're not going to be able to coach if you can't inspire. Again, a coach plays a slightly different role than a leader and a director, but they're vital roles. All right. So, now we're going to transition here and talking about the 3 levels of inspiration. We're going to talk about there's actually 3 different levels to be able to inspire your team. And write this down if you don't have, if this isn't in your notes. You cannot get to the 3rd level without the first 2. You cannot get to the 3rd level without the first 2. It's one of the reasons why us as a church have taken a long time in trying to develop this lead track and trying to get some of these systems well, because of this fact about inspiration. There's 3 levels of inspiration. Number 1 is to be prepared, that they feel that they have tools and the knowledge to perform well. This is important. Your team will never be inspired if they don't feel like they have the tools needed to accomplish what they're called to do. And so there's 2 different ways that we try to do that. And what you'll see is some seasons, some areas are stronger than others. And so it's a constant thing that you're trying to improve this. But one of the ways that we've tried to do that is to help people be prepared is onboarding equipping and ongoing equipping. So onboarding, which is what this is, coaching onboarding, is to help it's kind of like a master's class of these 5 competencies. It's a lot of information. We know it's a lot of information. But the point of that is ongoing is to revisit these things. So as a coach, if you go to help other coaches or whatever, or if your director or lead coach is helping you with these things, then you can break some of these things down ongoingly. So we get the onboarded, the upfront information, but we review them along with some other things that we need to have ongoing equipping on so that we can continue to grow in these things. So if you want your team to be inspired, you have to have an intentional effort to help them be prepared. Number 2 is engagement. That means that they actually feel that they're a part of a team, that they actually can see how they're growing. Just recently, I was talking with one of our pastors on staff who's been with us for a while, and he was saying that one of the things that he's been excited about is how much he's grown since he's actually been on staff at the church. And that doesn't mean it was always easy, but it was something that he knows he's grown. And I can honestly say it's absolutely true. Most of our team that we've had over a period of time, there's been massive growth. They've seen personal growth and professional growth and spiritual growth as they've done this. Also, engagement means that they're making a difference or doing something that they believe is valuable, and they understand the why. You need engagement. So you need engagement relationally. They need to know they're a part of a team. So this is why it's so important as coaches. One of the things that we ask you to do is to help the leaders understand they're part of a team, and also help their leaders to develop some level of community within their teams. Because people want to know they're part of a team, not just doing a task. Team versus task. Understand, team will always win. We all know we have to do tasks, but we do tasks as a team, not as like an outlier. So the only way you do that is you have to develop relationships. You have to have, sometimes you go out to lunches, and sometimes we, goof off and do fun things. This is why you have to schedule those things. We talk about when it comes to the we care system, when it comes to the relationship side, you have to have a plan. On a Sunday, it may just be having like a little bit of a joke during the huddle, or it may be, a monthly thing that you guys do, or a semesterly thing, or a yearly thing to help build that relationship. People need that engagement to know they're a part of a team. Also, that they have ability to grow. As we've shared before, leadership development is discipleship. When people are serving on a team, you're helping them grow spiritually. You're helping them grow spiritually because, as we talked about in previous messages, one of the 7 deadly sins is acedia, which is not necessarily laziness or slothfulness, but it is only doing what's best for me. It's a cost analysis. One of the 7 deadly sins is how we approach everything. What's in it for me? My interests, what I want, how I view things. We did a series called Made for Mondays where we talked about what the Bible says actually about work. Because what we are taught about work and everything that we do is completely contrary to the Word of God many times. So when we're helping people serve and grow in our dream teams, you're helping them to grow. So you got to remember that. Again, remind them that what they're doing matters, the ultimate why. So we're talking about they need to know the why for the role. The reason why we do this, why. If you just tell them how to do it and not the why, most people aren't going to care. It's just a task. There's not a purpose to it. But we also have to help them understand their why. When you do this, this helps us grow to do this. This helps us to improve in this area or whatever it might be. All right. So if they're not prepared and they're not engaged, they will never be inspired. It doesn't matter how fun you are. It doesn't matter how, little quotes that you give. If they don't feel prepared, they're not going to feel inspired. And if you equip, but we don't take the time to build relationships and engagement and help people grow, then they won't be engaged. I asked our staff what was one of the list of 32, what was one of the top inspirational factors that I lead with, and they said empowerment, which of all the list, I think I have that. I don't even think I circled that one for myself, but they felt empowered that they're taking these roles and they're being developed and growing. Well, that's an important thing. You're not going to stay anywhere very long if they don't feel like they're growing. So again, prepared engagement. And lastly, inspiration. They're drawing deep and lasting meaning from the role and performing it with purpose and passion. Team members who describe themselves as inspired are more than twice as productive as those who call themselves satisfied. Understand that. When someone is inspired, they do better work because there's meaning to it. There's purpose to it. Also, if someone's not inspired, you're going to have higher turnover in that area. Almost every time when you have a high turnover in a specific area, it's because there's a breakdown in the inspirational strategy of that team. It cannot just be, we've got to get it done. That's part of it, because we said they have to be prepared. So if you don't have the systems in place, if you don't have the protocols in place, if people don't know what they're doing, they're going to get annoyed and they're not going to be inspired. There may not be a lot of people who like to do things with excellence, but there's a lot of people I know who just don't want to stink at what they do. This is what happens. When your team is inspired, you'll see lower turnover, higher satisfaction, more productivity, and increased loyalty. Why? Well, when people know that you care about them, they're more likely to give grace in certain situations, and they're not going to be as likely to hit the road when something doesn't go their way. Now, we all know that there's unhealthy people, and there are some people that are so easily offended no matter what you do, it's just going to happen. That's part of ministry, because when you hurt people, and they're usually in a cycle. Now, the hope is that even if someone's in a cycle, that we can inspire them to a point, get them connected where they can, get in the community, find freedom, and get out of those cycles. But some people, it doesn't happen. At the same time, when you are taking the time to inspire your teams, then you're going to see people stick longer and people liking what they're doing more productive, and increased loyalty. When you're an authentically passionate leader, you're going to know more clearly what you're trying to accomplish. You're going to care about the people around you, and you're going to live the vision. So how I'm wired, I did this assessment one time, and they said they'd never seen an assessment like this, but all of my skill sets and my strategies were all in strategic, structural things, and then the middle was very low, but the other side was all about people. They're almost equal. Like, I really care about people a lot, but the way I show it is strategies, systems, because I just don't think about an individual. I think about multiple individuals. So when I see a situation like, oh, they're in this situation, I go and process not just helping one person in that moment. I go to process, what can we do to help lots of people in those situations? Is there something that we can do as a ministry? It's one of the reasons why we have our freedom groups, is we saw these things, and no matter how many times we want to meet with people one-on-one, some of these situations, there's a lot of them. Lots of people have issues. And with our small staff, it's hard to pull it off, but the freedom group all of a sudden opens up a consistent way to help people find freedom, and that's one of the reasons that we do that. So here's part of the strategy. How do you do it? We're going to get into that a little bit more of how you do this, but one of the ways that we do this is by asking you to have an inspirational calendar, meaning, like, what can you do on a weekly basis to inspire your team? It could be a simple text or like an inspirational quote that you send them. It could be an encouragement. If your team meets on a Sunday, it could be an encouragement then, or again, it could be a text or whatever it might be. So when you're looking at your kind of inspirational system or schedule, one of the things that you can do is just have a weekly time that you want to inspire your team. And for those of you that are more flexible and ooey-gooey with your time, I mean, the goal is just that it's done within that period of time, but it's most important that it's done. But one of the ways that you do that is it could be simply a text and an email. I know we've had a Connect coach where they would send out weekly texts encouraging, and sometimes it's a scripture, sometimes it's an inspirational quote from a book, and they send them the picture of it. Sometimes it's encouraging them spiritually, sometimes it's encouraging them personally, and sometimes it's encouraging them that I'm so excited that you're a part of this team as we help make a difference in those guests that are coming in. So this really is a very simple thing that doesn't even have to take a lot of time, but it really, really impacts people when they do this. And it helps them to know that you care about them and that they're a part of something bigger than themselves. Monthly, what do you guys try to do as a team? Semesterally, yearly. So there are some things that we do as a church. Like, for example, we have what we call light meetings, and we've changed kind of some of the strategy for light meetings, and 3 of those light meetings, one every semester, is going to be more relational, inspirationally focused. One of them is going to be what we've done for the last 2 or 3 years, which is a dream team party where we have food, we have fun, we celebrate what's going on, we celebrate some of our awesome dream teamers, and it's a really kind of a fun time. That's often done at a Christmas season. But then we also have 2 others in the year where it's geared specifically for inspiration. And that's what's important for you if you're a coach, is you want to get as many of your leaders there and have your leaders get as many of your team members there. Because again, when they come to that dream team party or inspirational dream team gathering, they're more likely to stick. They're more likely to get connected. They're more likely to see the bigger vision and more stick to what's going on. They're more likely to take more ownership and grow as they begin to get more connected and see the vision of where things can go. So at the end of this module, one of the main things is, how do you consistently have inspiration in your team? Again, weekly, monthly, semesterly, yearly. And schedule it. Be intentional about it. Because we want to do things well, but it's not about the task. The tasks we do is about the people. And I know one of our issues is that this has always been our heart. But sometimes you just don't know how to do it. Like, there's so much going on. It's like, how do you do this? Or you miss something. That's why if you have a systematic way of doing it, doesn't mean there's not flexibility. Doesn't mean you don't, there's not some flexibility and you seize moments that you wouldn't have seen or the Lord leads you in a specific way. That should happen. But when you have a specific rhythm, at least you have like some kind of structure where you do it consistently, and then there's flexibility within it. Because if you don't have that system, we can be flexible, and all of a sudden you may be inspirational to 2 or 3 people, but other people never got a phone call, never got a text. So it's more of like a spiritual discipline. One question that you may have is, when you talk about inspiring the team, if you're the coach, are you talking about the leaders or the teams, or how does that work? Well, some of that may be dependent on which area of ministry, but most of the time it's the coaches inspiring the leaders, but also helping the leaders inspire the teams. So ultimately, the coach's role is for the teams to be inspired, but one of the ways they do that is in part through the leaders, but sometimes, a leader may not be as inspirational as the coach. So sometimes the coach may help inspire the team depending on the gift mix and the specific area. But ultimately, the goal is to help inspire your leaders, and through your leaders, inspire the team. Though they're the coaches, so they may help with inspiration for the team. All right, so now we're going to transition to how to inspire. We're going to add some more practical nuts and bolts. We talked about why it's important, and even gave a little bit of a tip, like how do you kind of schedule this out. But now we're going to get into some more nuts and bolts and how to inspire, because again, this is really important. At Red Church, we haven't always done this well, but it's always been our heart to do it well. And if you're a part of being a coach and you become a coach, you're going to be a part of helping us do this better than ever before. We're excited about this. I hope you are too. I'm hoping that you're inspired. So in the beginning, I asked you to rate your teams on a 1 to 10 where you think they are as far as inspired. Now, as you continue this module, the question is how can you get your team to at least an 8? You want to live in at least the 7 or 8 area. Sometimes your people are going to be a 10, but you don't want to get below a 5. You want to have a consistent aim for a 7 or 8 in inspiration. Again, sometimes you're going to have a party and people are going to like, yes, this is it. This is life. I love it. And other times they're going to be like, man, this is hard. But you want to live in at least the 7 or 8 area of inspiration. So 7 or 8 is your ongoing target, that your team is always about at least a 7 or 8. So figure out how you can do that. Again, do it authentically, but do it consistently and do it intentionally. Hello, I just want to welcome all of you here today as we begin to talk about another aspect to the coaching track. And so to put this in context, there are 5 core competencies to be an effective coach. And again, I want to highlight that being a coach is one of the most important roles that we have in the church. It's one of the things that we recognize a couple years ago as being the one area we really needed to improve on. And we also recognize that we had a lot of awesome coaches in the church, but we had to be able to better effectively equip them and release them to a larger, better degree. So again, I just want to review the 5 core competencies of a coach. Number 1 is the main one, and that's mentorship. This is the number one thing. If someone does not have this ability, they really cannot be a coach. And that is the ability to grow people through the right experiences. So it's not just to teach someone, they have to have the ability to help them grow and know how do they grow, what experiences, what will help them help people grow. So I look at someone and say, I see the potential in you, but you need this, this, and that. How can you begin to help them and shape them? So that's the number one thing that we've already talked about. Today, what we're going to be talking about is inspire, and that is to have a heart to encourage, unite, and motivate their leaders. We'll get to that in just a second. But as a reminder, it's delegation, the ability to know what they can do, they themselves can do, and what others can do, so they know how to hand this off. And number 4 is equipping an effective coach. They effectively coach and equip their leaders. And lastly is reproduce. This is they multiply self and others. So they multiply themselves and others. This is different than gathering. So the difference here is that a coach can multiply themselves. A leader, if you remember the lead track, they can gather people. They like to invite people to things and get them to join on a team. But coaches can reproduce. They can take leaders and reproduce them. They can reproduce themselves. So that's a difference from a coach and a leader. But today we're going to be talking about inspirational. It's really important that we understand in order to inspire people, you also have to know what the vision is. You actually have to know what are you trying to accomplish and how do they fit into it, or else it's really tough to inspire someone. So I want to highlight here real quick is what we call the vision window. And this is a graphic that kind of illustrates the overarching big picture concept. Basically, if you see this, there's a window, and the middle is the vision. And each of the sides of the window is a part of the vision. And if there's any piece missing, the vision really will not be seen, meaning that everything will remain as a concept and not an actual It will not come to fruition. So in order to inspire someone in whatever role they're doing, you have to help remind people what it's all about. So if you don't know this, it's going to be hard for you. So these things that we're going to cover, these are the things as a coach you should know. You should have memorized. It should be part of your DNA, because it's going to be hard to inspire people if this isn't a part of who you are. So the first one is the vision proper, meaning the primary vision. And is there anybody here, and you guys can yell out if you're in your workshop or in your classroom or wherever you're writing this or watching this, could you tell me the vision of Red Church? What is the one-sentence vision of Red Church? Yeah, to see, correct. So you can put it up on the screen right now, to see 10,000 lives redeemed. That is the core vision. That's the ultimate goal, all right? So that is the center of the vision frame. It's the center. The other frames are how that actually comes to fruition. So one of those is the mission or the mandate. What is the mission or the mandate? The other one is the values, which is why are we doing this? That motivates people. Another part is the strategy. How are we doing it? It's a map. See, one of the things that churches are really notorious for, and some streams of churches are worse at this than others, but where they say, we're going to do this thing, and then there's actually no strategy. And in some areas, strategy is considered bad. Yet that's not a biblical thing, is that strategy somehow is anti-godly or anti-being led by the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit can inspire strategy. In fact, you can't really do anything if you don't have a strategy. And we all have strategies. It just may be that our strategy is not effective. So our church has a strategy. Your area of ministry has a strategy. All right? So that's another frame, is what is the strategy? And what are the measures? So you have the vision, you have the visions in the middle, you have the mission, you have the strategy, you have the values, you have the measures. Meaning, measures, how do you know if you're making progress? It means you actually have to track how you're doing at something. And if you don't track, then it's probably never going to happen. Like if you're trying to lose weight and you're not tracking your progress, it's probably never going to happen. All right. So for us, the vision proper is to see 10,000 lives redeemed. These are things that we know. Mission. All these are on our website, by the way. We need to know what these are. Values, are on our website. What are our values? Some of you guys know this, like to love God, love others. All right, choose joy, pursue excellence, and a couple of others. But these are what drives us. All right, the strategy. We have an overarching strategy of the church. We call it our dream strategy. And then measures. These would be the wins and benchmarks of your area of ministry. So these are things that you need to know as a coach, because if you don't know them, you cannot inspire people, because you're not helping them see things in the big picture of why even something that seems small matters. We don't see one position as better than the other. We all have roles to play, and sometimes our roles change as time goes on, and sometimes we're just wired a certain way. We honor all positions. It doesn't matter if someone is cleaning a table, if someone's setting out chairs, if someone is preaching or someone is singing. We honor all roles because they're all needed. They're all needed to accomplish what God wants to work through us. So now that we've established a foundation, in order to really inspire, you need to know the big picture of why and how we're doing this. So whenever you do equipping or you're mentoring people, you can have that in mind to lead them in the right direction. So now we're going to go into some practical steps. How to inspire. How do we do this? Some of you are naturally good at inspiring people. And others, it may not come natural to you, but there are skills that you can learn that you can improve them. And so this is something that you can improve. And there's different types of inspiration. But these are some tips on how to do that. First of all, number one is how to inspire your team. Pay attention. As a coach, it's really important that you take an interest in the person. Spend time with them. It helps if you can figure out how they communicate. All right? So especially if you're coach, that means you're overseeing leaders. You're coaching leaders. So pay attention. What's their passion? What motivates them? Right? Some people are motivated because they like to see little things change in people's lives. Some people are motivated by accomplishing things. Typically, there's two broad people, meaning there's some people are task or results, and some people are people. You need both to accomplish anything. You need both. One's not better than the other. You need both. Now, some people can be both, but most of the time, people prefer one or the other. Another thing is to meet them where they are. All right? We like to say it this way: love people where they are, not where you want them to be. Now, we don't want to leave them that way, but we want to love on them. So find out, again, this goes into their communication style, what's going on in their lives. Are they introverted or extroverted? That plays into it. An extrovert might respond to certain things that an introvert might like, holy cow, don't do that to me. Also, try your best to find their strengths. Try to capitalize on their strengths and minimize the weakness. All right? It may be necessary to improve some of the weaknesses. But one of the problems is we spend a lot of our time focusing on developing our weaknesses, but we need to try as much as we can to help people maximize their strengths. Now, if the role that they are in, it's taking a lot of time to strengthen their weaknesses, it may be that they're in the wrong role. And maybe they're in the wrong role because you want to spend a lot of time trying to maximize and play to their strengths. We all need to manage our weaknesses, but as a coach, you need to identify as like, okay, this person's really great here, but they're really weak here. And this position really requires them to be this, and this is going to be an uphill battle. So you need to process what that is. And every situation is different. Next one is be dependable. It's going to be hard for people to trust you if you set up meetings with them and you constantly cancel on them. It's going to be hard for people to trust you if you're late all the time. We all know things happen. Sometimes you hit a fire truck, or or fire trucks stops traffic, or your kid lit the dog on fire, or a wheel falls off your car. We all know things happen sometimes, right? But if there's a pattern of being late, if you're constantly late, it may very well communicate to them that either you don't respect them or you don't value them. Being late, and we all know that there's different personality types, and there's even different cultural types. You go to different parts of the world. But often what ends up happening is if someone's constantly late, what it communicates is you don't care about me, or I'm unimportant, or you're disrespecting me. Have you ever gone to the doctor's office and you're waiting for an hour before he even meets you? So, true story. I went to a doctor, and this is before I was married, before I was in ministry, and it took forever to get in, but once I actually got into the doctor's room, I sat in the doctor's room for an hour after already spending like 40 minutes out in the lobby, and so I was done. It was kind of a small office, so I'm like, I opened up the door, I walked around, I saw where the doctor's office was. The door was open, I went in, sat down. He was on the phone talking about golf. So I just sat down in the chair, waited for him to turn around. But in my mind is because often when you go to those places, like I know if you're a doctor, there's probably a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes that maybe we don't know about. But what it communicates is, I'm more important than you. My time is more important than you. So it's going to be hard for people to trust you if they can't depend on you. That's a real big thing because we've all been let down by people, right? I mean, we've all been let down, and so it's really important that you communicate. If something happens, you need to over-communicate, I'm so sorry, and explain what happened and make sure it's not a pattern. If it's a pattern, then it needs to be adjusted. So be dependable. That inspires people because when you're dependable, people can begin to trust you and you can speak into their life. Next is be present. If you're talking with someone, get off your phone. Don't be checking. If you're talking with someone, get off your phone. If you are constantly checking your phone in a meeting with your team or a meeting with someone, you are modeling to them how they are to behave. But you're also showing to them, everything on my phone or on my tablet is more important than you. It's highly disrespectful. It's highly not being present To be present, to make eye contact, to be able to listen to what someone's saying shows honor and respect. Now, if you happen to be in, for example, when Erica was pregnant and about to burst, as the baby was about to come out, I don't remember which baby it was. I think I did this at least for the last 2 or 3, and I was meeting with someone or I was teaching a class. I'd say, guys, I normally have my phone off, but just so you know, my wife's due any day. If my phone rings, it's because I left it on for that reason. If it's anybody but my wife, I'll turn it off. But if it's her, I've got to take it. And then people are like, okay, I understand that. I say this because I can't tell you how often I've met when I was trying to grow and be a leader, how many times I met with other pastors and how they kept getting interrupted over and over, phone calls, other people checking in all the time when I'm meeting with someone. And I'm sitting there going, Am I not important? Because what ends up happening is, what you feel like is every interruption is more important than me. So when you're meeting with your leaders, do your best. Also, respond to your messages. If someone emails you, call you, at Red Church, it's never like, oh, they called me, I'm never going to call them back. No, if you're a coach, you call them back. I think one of our policies, we try to respond within 24 hours. After a while, if someone doesn't respond to texts or emails or calls, at some point you start to think, all right, this person's probably not appropriate for this job, because if they're not responding to me, then they're not going to be able to effectively lead people. All right? So this is a big thing. If you're going to coach, you got to respond to messages. Now, if someone's losing their mind and telling you that, green T-Rexes are the new savior, maybe you don't respond to that one. But the bottom line is respond. You inspire when you are able to connect with them. All right? Here's another big thing. How do you inspire? Communicate expectations. This means explain the big picture, which we talked about. The reason why this matters is because of this. For example, if you're doing Connect, the reason why we are out as greeters is because within the first 7 minutes, people have made their decision if they're ever coming back or not. That's before worship. That's before the preaching. So what you out here being Connect and greeting people matters. So you have to explain the big picture. Explain how the roles fit into the big picture. Set expectations and hold them accountable. And this is a big deal. And this is something that we haven't always done well, and that's why the coaching piece is such a vital piece, is to communicate clear expectations and then hold accountable, meaning that if someone takes and say, yes, I'm willing to be a leader, well, there's a certain level of responsibility, even if they're a volunteer. Like if someone sits there and goes, I will be a small group leader, but they keep canceling their small group because other things become more important, like, instead I want to go to a movie with my friends, or I decide to take a trip, and it's constantly canceling small group. Well, at some point you have to sit there and say, look, if you're going to be a leader of a small group, you've got to be faithful in the small group. And if you can't do that, then let's see if we can find a different role for you. So you have to hold people accountable appropriately for what their role is. So when you hold someone up, if someone's a leader versus a coach, and depending on the role, there's a different level of accountability versus someone who maybe is a coach or director. And then recognize success publicly. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. When you give feedback, one of the ways that you inspire is you coach. A lot of people like to actually grow and improve. So by coaching them to help them grow, you inspire them. And you help them to grow both spiritually and you help them to grow both practically, meaning that you're processing how can they grow spiritually. Is this, you know what, I see a lot of potential in them, but they need to get some basic doctrine things right. So let's get them through foundations. Or I see a lot of potential in them, but there's some junk in their life. Let's get them through Freedom Group. You're helping people grow. The ultimate competency for a coach is to help grow people through the right experiences. So part of that is growing them. Help them grow spiritually and skills-wise. So, for example, if they're in Connect, how can they be the best greeter they can? How can they be the best usher they can? If they are in kids, in whatever role, if they are, how can they be the best communicator to kids, depending on what the role is? So communicating, written skills, whatever role is, a coach job is to help as best they can with skills and with spiritual. All right. Next is be open and available. Open and available means, partly as far as a coach is to give time, but also it's kind of a mentality of being open and available, and also open and sharing credit. You want to inspire, share credit. When in the area of your team does well, honor them. Honor the roles that they had in it. Don't take all the credit for yourself. Honor and highlight other people and what they do well. Give them opportunities to shine. Now, this doesn't mean you take someone who's never led a song in worship and you put them up there to lead on Sunday morning. You don't put somebody up to fail or to impact negatively. If you get someone who has no idea about technology and you have them oversee an entire online service, that's a problem. That's not allowing someone to shine. That's allowing you're opening up the door for them to fail. So you want to find ways to help them shine. Give them an opportunity. Next is cast vision. So part of is casting vision. You have to explain the big picture and the why behind everything. So for example, especially when you have folks doing a regular thing over and over and over again, it's important to explain the why. This is the most important thing about inspiration. The most important thing is you have to explain the why, meaning you are explaining the why behind why we do everything. So if someone is out in Connect, again, the reason why you're out here is because it makes a difference. Because again, it refers back to the 10,000 lives. As a coach, we should always be reminding people that everything that we do in the church is helping to see 10,000 lives redeemed. That should be a regular part of our huddles. That should be a regular part of your meetings and equipping. That should be a regular part. The reason why we do small groups is because we want to see lives redeemed. So we do things well. That's why we have freedom groups. We get people who are coming to Foundation. Some of them aren't even saved yet, but they're curious. Why? We want to see 10,000 lives redeemed. We put out chairs the way we do. Why? Because it's a part of being everything that we do. It doesn't matter if you're cleaning toilets. Guess what? People come to church, they have to go to the bathroom. And guess what? You don't go back to a place you can't use the bathroom. Every task is to help see 10,000 lives redeemed. You have to constantly remind of the why. And here's another thing. Vision leaks. If you're not keeping the vision in front of people every 30 days, you'll have more conflict, you'll have more people leave your team because vision leaks. Or some people will try to hijack the vision. But as you keep the vision in front of people, it gives direction. Every 30 days, you have to find ways to keep the ultimate why. So you have the ultimate why and the small why. The ultimate why is the why as a church, everything's attached to it. And then the small why is why do we do what we do this way? And why is this role important? The why is the most important. If all we do is do this, do this, do this, do this, well then eventually you kind of get like, why am I doing this? So it's really, really important. And I understand in some areas where maybe stronger than others, when you're just trying to keep things moving, it's very easy to get more directive than vision-oriented. And that's why you have to try to get the right people on the right bus and also continually reminding of the why. And it has to be done consistently because it leaks. In a second, we're going to kind of show a video. And the context of the video is how to share a good announcement. But this is actually basic vision casting 101. So it's the most essentials. And basically what you highlight of vision casting is you highlight the problem, you highlight the solution, and then you highlight next steps. So the problem is, it doesn't matter, let's just say, right now a problem is people aren't connecting. People have fewer than one close friendship. So I think it's like 50% of guys say they don't have one really close friend. That's a problem. How do we solve it? You get into small groups. When you get into a small group, you connect. When you connect, you help each other grow. There's a higher quality of life, more spiritual growth. So here's the next steps. And in the next steps, you help them see it. So you give them practical ways to see it. Because if you say the problem is that you don't run fast enough, the solution is run faster, but you don't give practical steps, then people are going to like, well, I can't do that. So you have to help them see, and this is the piece that usually people miss. This is the piece that usually people miss, is by helping them see it in their life. So you're helping them see and practically take the next steps of your solution so it goes from concept to reality. So for example, if you're talking with someone and they have just been struggling, they've been inconsistent in your dream team, right? And when you start to talk with them, you realize that them being inconsistent in your dream team had less to do with the team and had more to do with their life. This is important because most of the time the people give you a problem, it's often not the real problem. You know, I don't know how many times I've heard when someone has an issue with their kid or in a marriage or with their job, and they tell you the problem, and you dig down, it's usually not the real problem. But let's just say that you realize that somebody on your dream team is being inconsistent, and you're starting to think that they're losing interest. But when you find out from them, is that the reality is they're struggling to know the will of God in their life. So they don't know if they should be doing this or something else, or they have a new school they could go to, or there's another job. They're just so kind of distracted. They don't know what to do. So that's the problem. Well, here's the solution. One of the solutions, if you're a coach, is sit there and say, you know what? That's fair. We all have seasons in our life where we don't know what to do. Here's a cool thing. We have a small group specifically geared to help you be able to better understand and know God's will for your life. That's problem solution. So this is what we do. Then you help them see it. All you have to do is I can help you. I can connect you with the Grow leader, or we can sign up online because groups start in a week, or here's a card, you're in a connection card, you sign up for that, and you just go for the next 2 weeks. And I've been through this group, so if you go through it, it will help you be able to begin to start to answer some of your questions. And then I think you'll start to see change in your life. So you identified the real problem, and if you remember, you may need to go review it, but we talk about red flags in the lead track, because most of the time the problem that people identify is not the right problem. It's not the real problem. So how do you find it? We talk about that in the lead track. You solved it, or you bring about a potential solution, and then you help them see it. Not only did you help them show the next steps, but you help them to see how that could actually make a change in their life. Because then, once you better understand how God works, it might help you to filter some of these things that you're debating. So, this is fundamentally important of vision casting for something. Because vision casting is sometimes me just coming up here and vision casting, but you also have to do vision cast in people's lives and sit there and say, here, this is what you're dealing with, this is the way it could be, and here's how. All right? Next is to encourage them. One of the things that we like to do is celebrate wins. If you're a coach, know your leaders' birthdays and anniversaries and any special dates. If they get baptized on your watch, know their baptism date. Pray for them. This is one of the biggest things that I'm wanting, and I'm asking all of our church to do. It doesn't matter where you're leading, pray for your team every day. Pray for your team every day. Make it a part of your daily devotions. Pray for your team every single day. One of the ways that we care is we celebrate wins. So if they do something well, or the church, every time there's a church has a victory, celebrate it with your team and individuals. So like if say on a Sunday, 8 people got saved, well, we celebrate that as a group and say, hey, Connect team, you had a role in that, because one of the people, this is the second week, guess what? They might not have come back last week, but because of you played a role in that. And then you can go specific and say, I just want to honor you, Jessica, because I remember you actually walked them and helped them find a seat. Celebrate the wins. You celebrate their life wins. You celebrate the team wins. You focus and give individual wins. You pray for them. And then you remind them, meaning you remind the why. One of the ways that you care for people is remind them the why, because it does good for the soul as they remember what they're doing matters. It's not just a task, it matters. So I'm going to ask you some action steps here. What are you doing right now to care for your team? And what opportunities do you have to do better? Like, what are you doing right now to care for your team or your leaders? And how can you improve that? So we're going to pause right now, and I'm going to ask you that right now to talk with someone real quick and identify what are you currently doing, and be honest if you're not doing anything, and what could you do? So it's really important when you process care in your teams, just like everything else, like when we look at the we care system, because the we care system is how we evaluate every area of ministry. Is it succeeding or not? Is it healthy or not? And care is a part of that. When you look at the care as, you need to process it from a daily perspective, a weekly perspective, a monthly perspective, a semester perspective, and a yearly perspective. So for example, your daily perspective may just be that you reach out. If you're a coach, you reach out to one of your leaders every day, let them know that you're praying for them or caring for them. It could be a text, it could be whatever. Weekly, if you're meeting with your leaders on a weekly basis, like how do you encourage them in maybe your huddles or something along those lines? Semesterly, like how do you encourage that and yearly, and figure out a plan for that on a yearly basis? All right. Next is help them grow. As we talked about as a core way, one of the ways that you inspire people is by helping them grow, develop skills, grow spiritually. Another thing is to identify red flags. Not all junk is even, meaning that there may be some red flags that you may have to deal with. It may be spiritual red flags, it may be emotional red flags or spiritual red flags if their theology's off, or they don't play well with others, or they keep dropping balls. So you need to identify what those red flags are and help coach them to improve. And that inspires, those who are healthy will be inspired as they grow personally and individually, where they can sit there and go, you know what? I'm definitely better and I'm more mature and I'm better in what I do than I was 3, 4, or 5 years ago. Next is build relational capital. This can happen on one-on-ones. It can happen in a smaller group. Develop relational capital. One of the ways that you can do this is some people really thrive when you provide resources to them. So if there's, articles or videos or books that you can recommend, hey, I heard you're talking about time management. This book I read, it was really good. Why don't you check this out? But you know what that means is, inferring to this, if you're providing resources to help them grow, is that you're always growing. It's going to be hard to be an effective coach if you don't keep growing yourself. So the first part of this is help them grow, but you can't help them grow if you don't keep growing. Actively involve them. If someone has proven faithful and given good input, ask their input for other things. Now, we all know that not all ideas are created equal, but sometimes there are people on your teams that have more ideas that might actually help things. So you have to use wisdom and discernment how to, you don't take a bad idea and try to force it because you want them to feel good, but you have to play that out. All right, we're almost done here. The next one is connect them in deeper community, meaning not just you. It's not just you. Your goal is to help them connect with other people in deeper community. Because we all have limitations of how many people we can be close to all the time. I think you can effectively lead maybe 10 or 12 people, but as far as close, intimate relationships, it's usually about 10 or 12 people too. So you need to be strategically connecting with that person, but you also need to be aware of your limits, because people, you often hear people say, I just want a mentor. And we all want a mentor. We all want that. But basically a mentor, I like this phrase. One person said it this way. I can't remember which pastor, but they said, really people don't want a mentor. They want an Obi-Wan Kenobi. Meaning that they want someone who can teach them in every area of their life to grow better, and there's no person that can do that. Only God can do that. So for example, you might be able to help them with finances, but you might not be able to help them with marriage advice. Or you might be able to help them on how to communicate better in a public setting, but you may not be able to help them with improving writing skills. What you have to know is you need to be intentional, but you also need to know your limits. And know that when people are placing expectations on you that you cannot meet. So that's why you have to connect them with other relationships and other people. And I went through that myself. There were a couple people where I'm like, man, I want this person to mentor me in everything. The problem is they could not do that because the truth is they weren't knowledgeable in all the areas I needed. They just couldn't be everything that I needed to be. Either they didn't have the knowledge and they didn't have the time because they had other responsibilities. So what I began to realize is that God usually uses multiple mentors, multiple people. If you have leaders, there are going to be people that you more naturally connect to, but you cannot be BFFs with everybody all the time. So you have to be intentional, increase relational capital, but also know your limitations. That's why you have to connect them in a deeper relationship with other folks as well. Also, deeper connection are the teams getting together occasionally for relational stuff. Are you helping your leaders get together and be able to connect with each other? I'll just tell you, one of the favorite things I do is during the summertime, a group of us pastors, only about 15 of us, go into South Dakota, or at least that's where it's been up till now, and we just, as pastors, connect. It's the best thing we've ever done as far as our network is concerned, because we just were able to connect on a deeper level, a real level. And we are actually be able to goof off. So we had a conference recently after doing this, and we're able to just goof off. I've had deep relationships with many of them for a while, but it went to a whole nother level of goofball and just openness. You got to get your leaders to connect with each other and also help your leaders to connect relationally to the people that they lead. Your leaders should be helping foster relationships on the team. So help model that and show them how they can develop that as well. What happens is you can't always, at a coaching level, you can't always get everybody in all the teams together to do it. You have to help your leaders foster that sense of community. Guaranteed, if your greeters start to have a sense of community, they're going to greet longer because they're going to have more fun doing it. If your kids, small group leaders, start to connect with each other, guess what? There's going to be a stronger sense of fulfillment in it. So you have to foster that. It's not just a weekly, we got to get this done, we got to do it. No, we have to foster this thing. That's why as a staff, we often will do a conference or a retreat. We'll do some fun things. We try to do at least one fun thing a semester so that we can connect, because we believe in hard work and getting stuff done, but we also want to connect and be equipped and resourced and goof off from time to time. And then next is recognize contributions. You've got to find out the way that they receive praise. Here's a couple ways, all right? These are ways that you can recognize contributions, and it speaks differently. If you can identify someone's love language, you might be able to zero in on how to do this. It may be a thank you note. I've had this where I've written a thank you note and people keep the thank you note. Like, I don't keep a lot of thank you notes. There's one or two or three that I've kept my entire time, but some people, man, that just speaks their language. Another one is just words of affirmation. Just praise them. And there's different ways to do that. You can praise them publicly or privately. Some prefer one or the other. Some prefer both. So you got to figure that out. When you do give praise, be sincere, be specific, and strengths focus. When you give praise, you want to focus on their strengths of what they did. Now, here's the thing. You cannot make it up. Seriously. It has to be genuine. Everyone, look at me real quick. Whatever you praise publicly or privately, you need to be very intentional about it. Here's why. What you reward gets repeated. If you reward someone who's not doing a good job, if you sit there and go, I appreciate what you did here, and everyone's like, they didn't do anything. They've been lazy this whole time. Guess what? You've reinforced, okay, well, I'm not going to do it then. So you got to be genuine about it, and if you can't, you got to find something to praise someone. If you can't find something to praise somebody about, then maybe either coach them up or maybe they need to find a different seat on the bus. But it's got to be sincere. Write this down. Put this on. What you reward gets repeated. So before you go and praise someone, you better make sure that that's what you want. So when you're giving coaching, we talk about giving praise, and that can be publicly or privately. Coaching can also be publicly or privately, depending on what it is and depending on the person. Because there are some things that need to be coached where everybody is in on it because we all have to learn from one another. And so the important part here is to create a culture of humility and openness where we can discuss this, because we tend to not like stuff to be out there. At the same time, there are some things that are probably better served not done in public, and there are some people it's a little bit harder. And that's something that you're going to figure out time, because, in every situation is a little bit different. This is something that you're learning. Even myself, I'm always learning. When does this happen? When should this not happen? But also understand, like, my background. When you're an actor, if you're in a play, you're constantly getting feedback and notes. So at the end of every rehearsal, and sometimes often in the middle of rehearsal, you're getting notes on things. If you're doing a set, like in between takes, you're often getting direction, which are so like you're used to that kind of thing. And so you got to be cautious. There are some things that are more personal and some things that are a little bit harder. But the point is to create a culture of openness. Like, we're all going to grow in this. We're all going to improve on this. And so you got to take that one step at a time. Another way that you can praise them is quality times with leaders. Sometimes I just like to invite people to events, or invite them to a retreat, or invite them to an outing, just because it's a way to honor them. Opportunities to share ideas. This is another way that you honor. If someone's doing a good job, be like, okay, tell us some more of your thoughts, because you've proven faithful here. Some people have a heart to... Now listen, there's a difference here. Some people want to speak into every situation, and you have to discern the spirit behind it, and also, do they know what they're talking about or not? Because I can't tell you how many times people have said, I want to do this, and you find out that's like, it's skewed, that their heart really isn't in the right place. But when you've seen it, and they've developed, and then you want to have an opportunity to share their ideas and creativity, and use wisdom as you adjust them, because sometimes your best ideas come out of the ideas of people that aren't on your leadership team. They may be on the outskirts. And added responsibilities. When someone proves faithful, one of the ways that you can honor them is by giving them more responsibility. There are some people that are just wired that, like, I want to do good and I want to do well. There's some people that are just wired, I want to do well. And then one of the ways that they feel honored is by, like, they trust me to be able to carry out more of this. And lastly, how do you inspire people? And this is probably the most important one. I know I said vision is the most important, and that is on a practical sense, that's true. On the spiritual sense, this is the most important thing. You have to be reading your Bible. You have nothing to offer someone in inspiration if you're not in your Word. In fact, I heard a statistic recently that highlights that Christians who read the Bible 4 times a week have a dramatically different experience in life than those who don't. And here's what's even more eye-opening. Christians who do not read their Bible 4 times a week have no difference in their life whatsoever than a non-believer. There's no difference in their marriages. There's no difference in their quality of life. There's no difference in their joy, their emotions, their families, their mental health. There's no difference at all between unbelievers and Christians who don't read the Bible 4 times a week. So you cannot be an effective leader if you are not in the Word of God at least 4 times a week. And it refers back to, you can't help someone grow if you're not growing. That's true both spiritually and practically. That's just why we have to be in the Word. As we're in the Word, we grow, and the Word of God is in us, and we are able to impact the lives of others.
Break into groups of 2 to 3 and share your responses to the following questions. Give an example of a time you were inspired by a leader and how it impacted you. How can you inspire the people on your team? How do you keep the why in front of people, personally and professionally? Why does it matter that they are a part of this? Develop a plan to keep your team inspired and to keep the why in front of them on an ongoing basis, weekly, monthly, semesterly, annually. Take one opportunity to inspire and share the why with your leaders. Give your leaders a practical step on how to share the why with their team. Take time to observe it and give feedback. Find out how those on your team prefer to be honored. Take one opportunity to publicly honor someone on your team in a specific area. Choose a behavior that you want to see replicated. Be prepared to share your experiences with the group next session.